when we talk about this, what did we say last week when we were talking about solving equations? What's our like rule that we definitely want at the very end? Okay, the number by itself.
You want positive.
Okay, so but we want the variable to be, right?
Yeah.
The variable all by itself
Should be positive.
and positive. So does this mean that my answer has to be positive? No. This just means that the variable has to be. All right. So then we start looking at multiplication and division. And we've talked about this more than once, but what are ways of showing multiplication again? A dot. Parentheses. Right next to each other. Okay. Then we would have to talk about our signs of our answers. So if we have two negatives or two positives, my answer is what? Positive, right? If my signs are different, one's positive, one negative, doesn't matter. It's always negative, right? Doesn't matter which one comes first, doesn't matter which one's bigger or smaller. Okay? And then we are going to, so then what's the opposite operation of multiplication?
Division.
Division, right? So real simple problems. Just now, we have to notice that it is multiplication. So as Caden said, one of the ways that we can show multiplication is just writing the number and letter together. So again, my goal here is to get my variable all by itself and positive.
So you can divide by 8.
So I'm going to divide by 8. And whatever I do on one side, I got to do on the other side, right? So my 8's cancel out.
8 equals -6.
-6. And it's negative again because one's positive and one's negative. And then again, if they ask you to graph it, don't make it hard. Just make a number line. Make sure you show 0. And because it's negative, we show it where?
Left.
To the left. And because it's one specific answer, -6, we put a dot right on -6. And I don't need the shade yet because the shade is only when it's what kind of problems.
You don't know like the for sure answer.
Okay, so we would say they're inequality problems, right? When they have those inequality signs, less than or greater. Okay? Other than that, nothing real complicated for these ones. So -3k is equal to 27. What am I going to divide by? -3, right? If I divide by -3 on one side, I got to do it on the other side. Make sure you continue to do it on both sides of the equation. Remember now, when I have -3 and -3, they cancel each other out because I'm dividing. Right? -3 divided by itself would be just 1.
Yeah.
And so we are left with the k. So if you forget the negative here, then we would end up with a -k and you still would have to divide by -1. But that's where you got to remember the rule about the variable needs to be positive. So then on my other side, we'd get what?
-9.
-9. And that's it. Pretty simple, right? I don't believe there's any fractions in this one, this section. There will be sooner or later, but I don't think there are in this section. So you really won't have to worry about that. Let me check for sure. Okay? Any questions there? You want to see any more of those kind?
No.
So again then, the only other one that we can do is if it's a division problem. How do I show division?
Oh, you
Fraction.
should not.
A fraction?
Like a. Well, I mean, what's the word?
Oblique sign. The oblique
I
sign.
remember that.
Okay.
Are there gonna be story problems?
There's gonna be story problems. We'll go back and look at that one just a second.
They were like one of those.
So, we first just want to look at basic division problems. All right, y equals -5 equals -12. So again, if I think about division, the opposite operation of division is multiplication. So again, I have to recognize that my fraction means division. So now I'm gonna multiply something, and I'm always gonna multiply by the denominator, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna multiply by -5. And when I do this, I can put -5 over 1. And just one of the rules in multiplication is if I can look diagonal, I can always look to cancel each other out diagonally. So like we did over here, up and down, now we're doing it diagonally. But again, I multiplied by -5 on one side, I have to multiply by -5, on the other side. And so two negatives make a positive 60, like Mac was saying. And again then, remember, because all of these are equations, I can always take my answer and put it back into the original equation and check all my answers.
I got it. I was just thinking of another way I could do it.
Okay, so here's the question. What happens if I would have the exact same problem that we just went through, but they had the negative with the y? So here's the question. Remember when we talked about this the first time, where we could put that negative sign? Where did we decide we could put that negative sign?
With the whole fraction, you can make it all negative.
Okay, so we could put it out in front and make the whole thing, or we could put it on the top, or we could put it on the bottom, but it still means that it's negative. So is this problem right here any different than this problem down here? No, I just moved the negative sign. So you have two options with this problem right here. One, before you start, move it. You can do that, right? One negative makes the whole fraction negative, so I just moved the negative to the bottom. Okay? Otherwise, you can leave it there and do the problem just like we did. So what would we multiply this one by? Positive 5, right? And if I do that on one side, I have to do that on the other side. So again, I make my fraction, I look diagonal, and that's why we do this. But now I have negative y equals how much?
Negative 60.
Negative 60. And then remember, one of our goals, or the ultimate goal, is that that variable is all by itself and positive. So really what happens here then is this negative and this negative cancel each other out. Or basically, I switch the sign of that number in my answer. But why does that really happen?
Because two negatives equal positive.
Because, and yeah, exactly, but really, it's because I'm dividing by -1. Okay, so most people don't show this step. They just realize that if I had a negative variable, I'm going to change the sign of the number on the other side. But this is why it really happens. And then my two negatives cancel each other out, and my two negatives cancel each other out, and we still get y equals 60. That makes sense? So it's just a little different thing that you can think about. Okay? But that's about it. Any questions with that? You want to see any more of those kind? Anybody? Alright, so story problems. We always have problems with story problems, right? Alright, here we go. Esteban spent $112 on baseball cards. If he spent $14 per box, how many boxes did he buy? So what problem do you think I would do? Division? Okay. So if we wanted to actually write this as a problem, could you write this as a problem?
You could just do 112 divided by 14. That's all you really.
Right, but if I wanted to actually write it as a problem with the variable in it, what problem would you write?
You could do like be like 14a, and then be like it equals 112.
Perfect.
And then you just do it. So
Then you do what he said. So basically everybody knew just from reading it, but this is why we would say that, right? How much is each box? We don't know, but we had 14 boxes, or $14, how many boxes did we have, right? That's what it is. So how many boxes? We don't know. But if we do the division, as you all said in the beginning, then we get what? What's 112 divided by 14? Are you asking me or telling me?
It's 8.
It's 8. So, Remember, anytime that you do a story problem, we should also include a what?
Label.
A label. So this should be 8 what?
Boxes.
Boxes, right? Did you say cards?
I can tell you just zoned out that whole story novel.
How about this one? This one was in the book. A toy that can bounce down a flight of stairs is made from 80 feet of wire.
Slinky.
Yeah, kind of, right? A toy. Write and solve an equation to find how many of these toys can be made from a spool of wire that contains 4,000 feet.
Okay, that's easy.
So what are we gonna do?
4,000x equals 80.
4,000x?
No, 80x. 80x.
Oh my
gosh.
80x equals 4,000, right?
Then just divide by 80.
So we're gonna divide by 80 on both sides.
And then you get 50.
X equals how much?
50
50, what?
slinkies?
Toys.
Toilets.
Or toilets.
Slinkies.
You guys even know what a slinky is?
I do.
Yeah, I have one.
They're like little wire things. You can
Yeah.
throw them down the stairs.
They're like crawl.
And throw Landon down the stairs too.
That'd be funny.
You would have made it upstairs. What? You would have made it upstairs. Brady started gasping.
Alright, so, not a real hard concept. Not a real hard concept. Basically doing exactly what we did in the last section. We're just now doing it with multiplication and division. So after today, it'll get a little bit more complicated because then we'll put them all together, including multi-step problems. So on Monday, because these sections are so important, we're going to have another quiz right away. So over all of the equations and more of the ones like simplifying. Okay? So we'll have another quiz on Monday.
What were you saying about me earlier?
It's a joke.